Hi guys, welcome to our podcast Supposedly Adults, where we are four supposed adults sharing our quote-unquote youthful experiences.
Talking about the most random life topics.
Giving our thoughts that no one cares about.
And just trying to make life suck less.
That's right, so I'm Jensen.
I'm Melody.
This is Calvin.
And this is Lyris.
And today's random question is, do I deserve to go to the good place? Hello guys!
Hello!
Hi!
Alright, welcome back to the podcast. So, during this Corona season, we have a lot of free time, or I have a lot of free time-ish, to kind of go watch Netflix. So I recently got it, and a show that you guys kept recommending me was,
Right? Oh.
was The Good Place.
Finally! I campaigned so hard for The Good Place, and Jen's like, no, I already watched the whole YouTube analysis, I'm not gonna go back and watch 4 seasons and whatever.
No, I did watch the analysis, but after that, looking at the analysis, it talks about morality and mortality and whatnot. After that, you guys kept recommending me about it. Then I thought, you know what, I'll go watch it. So I think in less than a week, probably a season a day. There's only four.
There's 4 seasons.
There's only 4. That's really short. I watched
It's
The
really
Office in
short.
a
He
week.
finished The Office in 2 weeks?
Best show ever.
1.5 weeks.
1.5 week of 9
best show.
seasons.
That's a different podcast. But okay, so taking the advice of you guys, and I watched The Good Place, and I watched a lot of analysis on it, and then here we are. We're gonna do a podcast for our audience on The Good Place because there's really a lot to talk about.
Long
Yeah.
overdue. Should have done
I
this so long
said this
ago.
the moment we started the podcast. I'm like, let's talk about The Good Place. He's like, nah.
Okay, fine. So I'll just ask you then. We'll just jump straight into it. What are like your favorite moments or memories? I don't know whether you guys can still remember what happened in the
It's been a
show.
while.
Yeah, but I guess like from what
What-
you recall, the 4 characters, you guys even remember their names?
Yes,
I
love
do.
them.
Okay, is it Eleanor or Eleanor? That's the question.
Eleanor, I think. It's Eleanor, Chidi, Tahani, and
Jason.
Jason.
Jason
I used
Mendoza.
to really hate Jason in the
It's-
first episode.
yeah, me
I'm
too.
like, oh my god,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
person,
same.
I can't. But later on, I just kind of, he grew on me. I
like
really liked
An
that.
Asian representation, let's go!
I always found it funny how his name and this character is Jason Mendoza, and then his the actor's name is Manny. MJ or something? I forgot. Yeah.
Jack, sorry.
I can't remember.
We did not do
Okay.
our homework on this. But yeah, okay, I would say my favorite plot line would be Eleanor, right?
Yeah.
Eleanor and Chidi's relationship.
I love Chidi.
Yeah, they're really cute at
They're
the
so
end.
cute.
The finale, I cried
And
so
the
much.
mailman?
And then-
Chef
What?
kiss.
What
Yeah.
mailman?
Which mailman?
Like him in the mailman costume.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, the constant objectification of Chidi, it's really awkward, by the way.
Dude,
I don't
it's
know, man.
It wasn't that like prominent in the show. I thought it was
No,
only
it
like
was only
later
a few.
seasons
Yeah,
when he.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
one episode he took his shirt out and like, wait, you're hiding that?
Exactly.
Wait, this character does not look like that.
The explanation they gave is like, oh, I do push up when I get anxiety.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, that's why I'm buff, because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So what are your favorites?
I just really like the end of it, I guess. I gotta be honest, I don't really remember. I don't remember.
Oh,
It's been a while.
I think what I really like about The Good Place is the surprise element, because I feel like after the beginning of the 4th season, it's kind of slow. And I'm kind of like, I don't know if I still want to watch this anymore. But then the finale, it's such a huge surprise, and I didn't see a lot of things that they proposed
Oh, yeah,
in a
for
way.
sure.
Like, I didn't even think about that. Like the fact that, you know, The Good Place can get boring when you get all the good things, and when you have to live in a place where you can get whatever you want for billions of years, then things would get boring. And I never thought about that, and I think it's a very interesting take on it.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, actually, my favorite moment is actually season 1, because that's getting me hooked onto the show. And I remember season 2 and 3 is kind of slow, and then 4, like you said, kind of picked up. I really like season 1 because it's unlike other shows where it kind of talk about how whatever you do has consequences because there's like a point system. So to
Mm.
me, that is fascinating how, like, you know, the Western world have that take on it, on life. So that is what drew me to it. I thought it was really interesting, yeah.
Yeah, when you guys recommended it to me, I think like because I watched an analysis but I really didn't internalize it, so I sort of know they wouldn't stay in wherever they were in the first season.
The twist, I was like
okay,
legit
the twist
like,
I did not
whoa,
expect because
really?
in my head
Really?
it was a different twist.
Oh,
Because
thank
like
gosh.
when I looked at analysis, it focused more on season 4. After that, I looked at season 1. Okay, but then like okay, I don't want to spoil anything because it's such a good for people who haven't watched it.
Should we just spoil like do
Wait,
a
no,
spoiler
we'll
alert? 'Cause
spoil it later. But
I think if you have not watched it, go watch it yet and then come back to this podcast.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're gonna spoil it.
It's been how long, girl?
no, but we don't
Get
have
with
to.
it. Get with it.
But at least when I talk about my favorite part of the show is definitely in season 4 and the ending, like what Melody said. But especially for, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that this is a show where I really like the depiction of how these characters, quote unquote, I don't know whether this is a spoiler or not, but they died.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but-
not a spoiler.
That's the
not
beginning
it.
of
That's
the show.
beginning
Yeah,
of
but
the
I guess when no, as in like at the end they died again, quote
like
unquote.
the last-
Yeah, that last part.
Right.
So I don't know whether that's a spoiler or not, but it's what I knew when I went into the show, but I didn't really know how they would get there. So it was a journey of going through everything.
Interesting.
And then the thing also I liked a lot about the show is that each season there was no set storyline. It was more like I literally did not know where the show is going to go from season 1, and every other season I did not understand where are they going to take this concept of an afterlife and where they will like kind of bring it. Like in season 3, which I admittedly didn't like, they went back to Earth, and after that they explored that concept a bit. I didn't really like that season, but it was interesting. It's a show that never did that.
Yeah, exactly. I think I like this because it's a kind of sort of a sitcom, but it's not exactly. Because sitcom is like, it's always recurrent, right? Because they just, like, they have these characters and they throw them into different scenarios and it's basically the same thing.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
they have to, like, churn out as many content as possible.
Yeah.
But for The Good Place, it's always... the character. It's always about the character. It's always about the character arc. And as soon as they got the character arc done, they're done with this. Because 4 seasons is not a lot for like a very popular
Yeah.
show.
That's
I was so
So,
surprised. It's
I
so
love,
short.
I love like although I really want more episodes, but then
I think
really
they
like the
ended
idea.
it perfect.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
they ended
yeah.
at the peak, and then
Yeah,
they
yeah.
end it with the perfect character arc instead of like because
Trying to drag it out.
TV
yeah.
shows like always they give the characters a character arc, and then they suddenly make them back into the original.
Yeah.
The characteristic
Yeah,
again
yeah.
because they to turn out more things. So I think that's
Yeah.
very very good for it.
Which is like we really have to commend Michael Schur. Is that his name?
He produced The Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and The Good Place.
Amazing.
And another great one.
And Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, see?
Amazing.
He
He gets the
I know.
millennials. He
I
knows
know.
what millennials want to watch,
It's
basically.
great.
Yeah, I really like because I feel like the content or the plot or the idea of this show, it could very easily turn into a very cheesy, preachy
Yeah.
Exactly.
type of
Yeah,
TV
that's
show,
true,
but
that's
it
true.
does not feel preachy at all
Yeah.
because I don't know. I feel like each character is very flawed in their own way, and they're very human. So it's very easy for you to relate to them, and
Yeah.
it's not like oh they turn into these great people all of a sudden, and
Yeah.
you kind of it's convincing. I would say
Yeah.
the whole.
I
the
also
whole
like that little
development.
touch where at the end, all the 4 characters become some form of what they started as. I don't know whether you read that analysis, but like, I think Jason Mendoza, because he was like waiting for Janet, but after that, he was like, he lived a life of silence before he actually left everything.
yeah.
So it was like reflecting when
Yeah.
he was a Buddhist monk and
Impulsive.
stuff.
That's true.
Sorry for the spoiler. But again, that doesn't add too much to the
That's
story.
really cool.
But also about, oh wait, you want to say something?
Oh no! I was just thinking about how what you said because you just said like Lyra said because they were just talking about it. Just occurred to me because you were just talking about how the show ended perfectly, like ended at the peak, and then the show just kind of ends. And I thought that's kind of related to The Good Place because it's
true.
kind of like we die, right?
It's
We
true.
like always try to find like it's a perfect moment to die, like end at the peak, so people will kind of remember us, kind of thing. And I think that's kind of what the show was kind of exploring in
It's
a way.
true, it's
So
true.
I don't know what's your take on it. I
Yeah.
thought that was kind of interesting how
It's,
it
true.
kind
It's,
of
like,
went
it's
parallel.
exactly the ending, right? Because it's like all good things doesn't last. Like
Yeah.
if it's gonna be good forever, then at some point it's gonna be bad. Like The Good
Yeah.
Place, even it's like
Right.
the best thing in the
Yeah.
world. Like at some point you get tired of being in the
That's
good
true.
place, so
Could be,
they
yeah.
leave the good place.
Yeah.
Like,
I can't quote a lot of specific moments or evidence, but I just have a feeling of completeness at the end of the show.
Right.
Because all the characters somehow then, like what Jansen said, right? They kind of went back to how they originally were, but then they embraced that part of it. So they are still themselves, but they just became better
The best
versions of
version.
themselves. And then they kind of embraced themselves and they left in contentment and just completeness. That's why it's so satisfying to watch
Yeah.
the finale.
and like it's a common thing where a lot of fans just talk about the ending and why it's so satisfying, because like in my mind, I guess when I contrast it to popular like other popular sitcoms like Friends or The Office, you kind of end off where okay, the characters are there and like they have this quote unquote happily ever after, but you never really know what's going to happen after that. But for this show, it has a really really satisfying ending. Not only does it call back to the beginning and it shows the growth of the characters in literally 4 seasons. How did they do that? But at the end, you are actually rooting for these characters to leave this fictional world that they have created. And I think like no other show really talks about this, or like we're technically encouraging them to quote unquote die, but not in a sense that we're very used to. I guess like for our generation, or just like people in general, we tend to look at death in a very negative way. But for this show, like literally almost all the fans came here, watched this show and said like, okay, I want you to leave in like in a very positive light, like they're literally becoming beams of light in the universe or something like that.
Yeah. And dying is painted in such an elegant, beautiful way instead of this, horrible, I don't know, picture of it. Like this is the end. You're leaving everything that's good, and whatever. Which is the more common way of depicting death.
Do you think young people actually think a lot about death? I don't know. Like I'm like back
Do
and
you
forth
think a
sometimes.
lot about death? You're young.
Like we are young. Wow. I guess I think I don't know whether I'm an exception. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's this show that exposes more people to this concept of thinking more about death. Sometimes I do think that like young people try to ignore it, but
Yeah, for sure. I think our generation is more comfortable to talk about death. I think that's the thing. I don't know.
That's
if
true,
we-
that's
if
true.
it-
To
I think-
what level? Like you talk about death, like I'm just gonna die.
Don't
Or, like,
you think I don't know, or at least for the Asian side, right? Death is always like a very taboo subject. We don't talk about death. Like we like it's considered as unlucky if we like talk about like funeral, but we're very comfortable with talking about that. We're like, I don't know, like me and my friends, we always make jokes about die like I love popcorn. He's gonna live like very well until
Your
he
dog.
dies. My dog. Sorry. Like we always talk about death, or we're gonna die anyway. Like I feel like we are very comfortable with or at least our coping mechanism of death is making fun of it, like having like really dark humor, and a lot of shows reflect that. I feel like, for example, the shows that I watch, BoJack Horseman, Rick and Morty, they all have a very unique or like very, I guess, nihilistic view on death, and they talk about it a lot. They make fun of it a lot. I think we are more. I think we're more aware of.
Is it though?
death.
Like I don't know. I'm just thinking back because I felt like this is kind of one of the things that I say all the time. It's like whatever, I'm gonna die anyways. Maybe I'll do it.
right.
Or like whatever, I'm gonna die anyways.
This
Who
YOLO
cares?
mentality.
Yeah, but. I don't know. I'm just saying it, but if I'm
Yeah, for
reflecting it, I don't think I'm fully embracing the idea.
Yeah.
Of death.
Right.
I'm just saying, I'm gonna die
agree.
anyways.
I
you know what I
think
mean?
maybe it's because our generation, we're still, like, in theory, very far away from death. So we are comfortable with making fun. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, I could die tomorrow, but then, in theory, it's still, like, very far away from me. So I could talk about it in
a distant.
humorous way.
But do you feel like, okay, because YOLO is and I hated it at the beginning, because I'm like, dude, stop it. Okay, so for those who don't know, YOLO, for boomers that are listening, YOLO is
Actually, I don't think Gen Z know what
If you
YOLO
don't know what
YOLO is.
YOLO
YOLO
is-
is your
That's true. I think Gen Z
generation.
doesn't
Gen Z for the
understand
kids,
Guys,
like,
what
kids.
archaic concept
YOLO
is.
is the, I don't know,
Mom
what's the
and
equivalent
kids.
to, like, period, I guess, I don't know.
I
Wait,
don't know.
what? Period?
Period, like point blank period, but with a T at the end. So
What?
it's like,
What?
dogs are the best, period. The S in
I have never
I feel like you watched too much RuPaul's Drag
Girl,
Race.
no,
What are you talking
period,
about?
like the
The full stop.
punctuation,
Full stop.
I know. It's just
Period.
period.
Period. So when you say something to emphasize the point,
Yeah.
like there's no argument to
Yeah.
it. Dogs are the best. Period. Right.
Oh, you mean like
Yeah,
how
yeah,
it's
yeah.
used?
Yeah,
that
and then
kinda-
with a T at the end to emphasize more. So, dog is the best. Point blank. Period. So that's how you use it.
Maybe
Come
confusing.
on, that is
I'm not trying to make sure I
You
don't
should
really.
really see our faces right now.
Y'all are such goofers.
So
Come on, get with the
confused.
program.
Okay, anyway, I guess for moms out there and also for kids out there,
What with
YOLO,
dads?
dads
You know
out
what? For
there,
everyone out there.
YOLO, if you don't know what it means, is you only live once. So I think it's very interesting, right? So what do you think YOLO even means? Like, does YOLO mean, oh, because you die anyway and there's no consequence after that, that's why you can do whatever you want and just enjoy life and live it to the utmost? Or does YOLO essentially mean life is meaningless, so you could just whatever? I mean, I guess it's the same thing. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I feel like,
What's
yeah.
your take on YOLO?
I don't know, for YOLO itself, I would just think it's an excuse for people to not give a shit about other people and,
And
to
just do
whatever
whatever
they
you want,
want.
be selfish.
Yeah,
right?
which I found, like, you know, when those videos came out and everyone just did something stupid, but then they
They're just going YOLO.
Yeah.
And then they do
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
It's basically big TikTok energy. Like TikTok is basically also like that. Like the energy of that.
social media based.
Oh yikes! It's fine. It's fine.
You
YOLO
do
is
it for,
fine.
yeah.
Do it for the fine.
No, but I think what's interesting is The Good Place essentially just debunked this whole YOLO idea, because the beginning of the show, it's already, established on you died and there's something afterwards. You're not just dead. And there's this whole system and world beyond that. So what do you think millennials nowadays would kind of accept that, because they kind of grew up on this YOLO idea or whatnot? Do you guys feel
Did
like
we
there
grow
is
up?
an afterlife?
Yeah. Do you think our generation? I don't know. Well, I guess afterlife is a very like religious. Like it kind of like associate with religion.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like our generation, I don't know. I think I don't know. Like the American audience are usually non-religious. I think they're very secular, most of them.
I have no idea.
I think so. I think most of us are like, okay, compared to the older generation, I feel like we're less religious than the older
Okay,
generation.
yeah.
I think at
definitely.
least that's
Yeah, that's why I'm shocked at how popular this show is, because I thought that
Right?
it's
Yeah.
very different from what the
But I don't think
quote
it's
unquote
religious though.
scientific world nowadays.
It's not. They're already established
not
at the start, where it's like
It's a
all the
little bit of-
villages,
yeah, got it
all the
at
villages
2%.
got
It's
that kind of
hilarious.
thing.
Do you remember they like the afterlife, and then they're like, oh, every religion kind of got it right around 2%.
Except for
Except
that
for
one
the
guy, I
Doug-
forgot.
the
Doug,
stone dude. That person, like, know the whole thing, but all religion only guessed like around 2%. They were right for 2%.
Right.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah, because I think one thing that Calvin said at the beginning of this really got me focused on it. Essentially, we were saying how there's a point system. It's interesting to see how the Western world thinks that way too. What do you mean by that? Like, why did you draw attention to the fact that it's from the Western philosophy?
Oh no, like okay, so I guess it's just because based on because I come from a Baptist school, right? But then and then what they taught us is like, obviously Jesus teach us to be to be good, to be kind to people, to love everybody, right? But then what always got me thinking is they're like, oh, you know what? You can only get to afterlife, you can only get to heaven if you believe in Jesus, right? And I always thought that, okay, what if I'm like a terrible person? What if I'm evil? What if I kills everybody? But at the end, I fully believed in God, and then like, do I still get to heaven, or do I still have to go to hell for the things that I've done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so that's why that point system really kind of resonate with me, because it's like, oh yeah, you have to be good, you have to keep collecting the points in order to get to the good place. And if you're evil, you do all the bad things, and obviously you get to the bad place. And that's kind of like the karma. Like, and I always like that, because you pay for what you've done. Like, I always believe in that, right? Because, that's kind of how our society works. If you broke the law, you got caught, you go to prison. You have to pay for the consequences. And I believe in that, right? So that's why I thought the point system's kind of is really interesting, because that's kind of resonated with karma. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, I personally really appreciate The Good Place for not simplifying that for not saying, oh, you do good things and you go to heaven, you do bad things and you go to hell. Because a lot of times this is the simplified version of how we learned about this, right? But then a lot of times what I really like about The Good Place is the complexity that it brought into it. Because let's say if I donated to an organization, you know, I did a good deed, then I am a good person and I deserve to go to heaven, for instance, right? But then what you don't know is that this organization actually supports a cause that involves child labor, for instance, or they create a lot of waste in this world because they're creating, you know, products with a lot of packaging. There's just a lot of layers to things that we don't know, we're not aware about. So a lot of times people do say, oh, I've been good all my life, I don't know why this bad thing happened to me. But it's a lot of times it's because we're too dumb to notice, or we're too dumb to understand the bigger world. And that is what I really appreciate.
How does that relate to you, like in your personal life? Have you ever any personal experience like that, where you think you've done something, you think it's good, turns out it's bad, but because, I mean, you only, let's say if you're a good person, for example, good person, air quote, right? You do it because you think you're doing the right thing, right? That's why that makes you done it, right? Otherwise you don't, like, let's see. So I don't know, like, probably based on what you've said, have you have any personal experience with that? I guess that's what I want to say.
Well, I think a very quick example that I can think of right now is, let's say if you give advice to people, you're always trying to assuming that you like that person, you care about that person. Every time you give an advice, it's always for their own good. But what you don't understand is, you know, the larger context. Let's say if I tell Lyris to I don't know, stop drinking, for instance. I don't know.
Drugs. Casually eating cocaine, like, yo, I think you should like tone down with the cocaine. I just feel like
just tone down. Keep doing what you do.
tone down.
YOLO, right? Like,
I don't know, because I can't come up with a very specific example right now, but I've always felt like whenever I feel like somebody should do something for their own good, a lot of times that's not the truth and that's not the best for them, but I just thought about it from my perspective.
That's the thing. I think my question would be, like, I completely understand that. I think that's like one of the good thing about The Good Place is basically like, oh, the example The Good Place used is like, oh, I went to, like, I bought some flowers and I gave it to my grandmother. This is a good thing, right? Because you're like giving, but then the person still got negative points from that because the flower they got is like an organization that supports child labor and then or whatever, or like it's not good for the environment. But then the thing is, like, how do you define good or bad? Like, I think that's like like for a religious person, right? Then you'll like just follow whatever the religion, like there are certain rules or they have a certain point of view of like what is good or what is bad. So I don't know, like that's like the thing, because for example, for Calvin, like you also use the example of like laws, right? But the laws are made by human beings. Like 50 years ago, you get caught for marrying a person with a different race, a different skin color, and then it's considered a bad thing. And if you've done it, you get the quote unquote consequences for that quote unquote bad thing. Which in reality, 50 years from now, you're like, yo, like that's nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's like it's really hard for human beings to really comprehend what is good or bad, or like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you think that is related to our view to YOLO then? Is that why? Then that's lead to that YOLO mentality, because like you don't know what's good or bad, and people are like, you know what, whatever. There's no consequences anyways, right? Like who are you to say is good or bad? So why don't I just do something that makes me happy? And you know what? And I'll just die and like whatever. Do you think that's contributed the view to, like, I guess, you know, that's why they have that YOLO mentality?
I think the YOLO mentality could be, I might be analyzing thing, but the YOLO mentality could be just a result of being resigned or feeling helpless because you don't know what you could do anyway, and you don't know if if I do this thing, is it good or bad? Does it actually contribute? Because we don't know, people tend to feel helpless. And when you're helpless, you're just like, oh, whatever. I don't care anymore.
Okay, so I have something to confess.
It's very difficult to make it very eloquent.
Yeah. It's
Okay,
a
can
very
I just-
deep philosophical
can I
question.
confess that my friends and I use YOLO on a daily basis? But no. Okay, but the context we use it is like during high school. Every single time before a test, we will like scram, will be like super intense. We're like, oh my god, I haven't studied. Oh my god, what is this sheet of paper? I've never seen it. Like, how does it? I'm like trying to scram. Like, we're just like always so intense. And then there's always one person like, whatever, YOLO. I'll just like whatever.
Yeah,
like,
that sounds
like,
Oh yeah, I did that.
right, exactly. That's like the way. Or like we're like, oh, how was the test? I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of YOLO'd it. So like we use it as a verb. Like, oh, we kind of YOLO'd it. It's kind of like, oh, whatever. I'll just take a test.
Yeah, but I think
That's kind of helped a
the
bit.
difference between your example and like the examples that Melody and I were talking about was, I think, for when we're talking about YOLO in our own individual actions, the consequence doesn't really extend to anyone else besides yourself. I think that's where the complexities of good and bad, that theme kind of pops in, because like good and bad, or like the idea of good and bad, has kind of evolved throughout the ages, as you mentioned. And at least for the good place, we're not really, and at least for like what we're talking about, I guess when we're talking about YOLO and why we don't really support it in that way, where you're causing harm or you're kind of inconveniencing the people around you when you're not taking regard about their affections or their emotions. I guess that is how the good place is kind of forming it towards.
I agree with what you said, Jensen, because I was just thinking about it. I was just thinking like I'm older now, I'm not that old, but kind of like, I guess at this stage of my life, I'm still kind of by myself because I don't have, let's say, like have my own family or have my own kids, whatever, right? Because I'm all by myself, right? So whatever I do, it doesn't really affect people around me because I also live so far away from everybody. So like whatever I do, all the consequences, I'm the only one who need to bear it. So like, you know what, whatever, YOLO, right? I failed test, right? But then I was just thinking like, let's say if I have my kids, right? It's like if I have, people around me, right, closer to me, then whatever action I do would affect them, then I'm not gonna have that YOLO mentality anymore. You know.
But I think it really depends on how big your immediate circle becomes. Because if you're talking about your own immediate family and your child, then by all means, definitely. But a lot of times, why, let's say, protecting the environment is so important is because I could be, for my own convenience, it's so easy for me to just buy a bottle of water from the street. But if I think about the greater good or the bigger world, then every single act kind of affects somebody. So it really depends on how you draw the boundaries of your
But I don't know if this is related, but also I think the good place also presents another view, which is through Chidi, because Chidi is a person who obsesses over every single decision he makes, whether it is like how does it affect, how does it make him a person, like is he a good person or is he a bad person. So I don't think like it's another extreme of that, right? Because Chidi doesn't think about himself. He thinks about every decision he, like, I guess, like, in a way it is himself. But I don't know, can people ever be completely selfless? Like, for example, if I do good things, is it because I know that I should do it? Or do I really want to do it? Or because I know if I do it, then another person feel better. But that's kind of sort of like still, I want them to feel, do you know what I mean? Like, in a way, there has to be some, like, if you have to argue it in that direction, it's always selfish in a sense. So yeah, like I don't know, what do you guys think about how they present
I keep thinking about the example that you gave of how you use YOLO, right? Would it be, instead of YOLO meaning that you could just be selfish and do whatever you feel like doing because it doesn't matter, or could it be also just a mindset or mentality of not being obsessive over the consequence because you don't know better anyway? So it's kind of like a let go type of situation. So instead of being like Chidi, instead of being so obsessed over the consequence of the impact of your action, you kind of try to do your best in your best knowledge and your best ability and just kind of let go of what it means or the consequence of it.
I don't know, like, is it let go or just giving up? Because to me, YOLO means different things, depends on the day. If I'm so tired, let's say I'm working as an assignment, right? And I'm so tired, I was like, you know what? F this, YOLO, whatever, I don't care, right? But another day, like I'm so energetic, I'm so pumped because I just listen to our podcast. I'm so motivated. Like you know what, YOLO, let's do this. I can help the world. I can save the world. Like YOLO means so many different things depending on the day.
I think that's a great point, to be honest, because I think I'm just reflecting on when I'm using YOLO. I couldn't really categorize it until you mentioned it up. But like when I see it online, the usage, I guess, it's more of you don't really care about the ending, which Melody said, where you just neglect it. Just whatever happens, that's the mentality, and not really of. I rarely see, I guess, memes online where they say YOLO, which means like, just don't do it, just give up on life. And I think that's the idea of what the Good Place is trying to push for, because like you have Chidi and Eleanor, right? So Eleanor is someone who has the willpower, who has the determination, but and in the first season she's inherently immoral. But like contrasted with Chidi, who is thinking about all the ethical like dilemmas and positions he's going to put himself through, ends up not doing anything, and that in itself, because he chose inaction, that is also not going to help him in the Good Place. But it's that question of fundamentally, I think the idea of death or morality, it drives like what we want to do or what we should do, and I don't know, maybe we should we think too much about it? Are we maybe too much?
Sorry,
it's so complicated.
You guys remember Ryan Higa? And then he made a video about YOLO, and then like his interpretation of YOLO is actually because like you only live once, because you only live once and you only have one life, so you have to be very careful and you have to like protect your life. That's what he's like. And then he used the term Ebolo, but I don't remember what it means. But anyway, so basically he's like, there's a lot of scenario. They're like driving, and then he's like, YOLO, I only live once, so I really have to protect my life. And then he wears a seatbelt. Like that's the thing. Like there's different interpretation to that.
Okay, that's true. That's true too.
Yeah, no, because I'm just thinking about what Jansen said too. Because Eleanor and Chidi, I think that is also what makes their relationship so interesting. It's because they're such completely different, opposite people. It's very cliche, but after all, I guess it's just balance. Like find the middle ground, which is obviously theoretically easy to say but difficult to do. But I don't know. I really don't know what it means or how we apply it to our everyday life.
Well, actually, I was saving this for the other episode that we're gonna do, like the morality one. But I guess I could also bring this in because this is something I've been struggling a lot with, personally, because I am a religious person. I'm a Buddhist, but then at the same time, I have been learning about feminism and all that. And wait, have I told this story before?
I feel like
Yes,
now's the perfect time to tell the story.
Just say it again, for the audience who hasn't heard it yet.
Okay, sorry. So I'm a feminist. I'm a BA student. I'm a humanities person. And then in humanities, there's a lot of saying that there's basically, it's very similar. There's no like absolute right and wrong, because everyone's subjective experiences shape their values of what is right and wrong. So that's always what I believe in. But at the same time, in Buddhism or in a lot of religion, there is a certain set of morals, right? A certain set of standards or like a higher being that would judge, whether it is like God in Christianity or in Buddhism, maybe there's a system, a karmic system that has a very specific system that judges you based on whether you do something right or wrong, right? And then kind of like fucks up my mind because that's my interest, because I am very stress about that, right? Because in humanity, I'm like, oh, there is no like absolute right or wrong, so I can't judge other people. And for myself, I just have to believe that what I'm doing is right, like to do everything based on what I can understand as right and wrong, and just do my best. But then in Buddhism, or like in religion, it's kind of like there is a certain like set differences, and that kind of stresses me out until I talk to my professor, and then she's actually a Mormon. And then I talked to her about like how she's my professor, she's a feminist professor, she's a super feminist person, and I'm like, oh, how do you balance that, especially for Mormon, for example? There's a lot of ideals for Mormonism that is completely like opposite from feminism, right? So I asked her, how does she balance it? And then she's saying that how she believes that she can integrate the two like identities. So like being a believer makes her a better feminist, being a feminist makes her a better believer. And then she always imagines a scene where after she dies, she will meet Jesus, and then she will tell him her story. She'll tell her her life story or different decisions that she have made. So for example, like, oh, at this moment I did this thing because I think it's the right thing to do. I chose the believer side because I feel like this is the right thing to do, or like in this instance I decided to do that. And then she says that she knows that Jesus will understand her. So that kind of takes off the pressure out of me. So although I don't believe in Jesus, but the thing is, it's just the idea of I have the right intention. I just have to do my best. I understand there's always a consequences that I will never know because human being can't see the big picture. But as long as I have the best intention and I do the best and I try to think about it, I try to analyze it, think about it, and I'll just have to make the decision and I'll have to live with that. And hopefully that's the right decision or something like that.
I think that's interesting because when you said how, religion kind of has a fixed right or wrong, what Buddhism taught me is actually the opposite. What Buddhism taught me is that you could never know the absolute right or wrong of a context, and also the fact that it's ever changing. So at this particular moment, this thing is absolutely right, but it could change the next moment. So that is why there is no need to be obsessed over this moment's right or wrong. Yeah. So that is kind of opposite to what you got out of the religion, which is kind of interesting, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say that actually The Good Place doesn't really focus too much on the point system. Rather, it uses it as a gimmick that, like, at the start, they just show you, if you use Facebook as a verb, you get, negative points or something. That kind of fun thing. But, no matter what you do, the show kind of depicts that us have, we are able to make choices. And I think, yeah, I'm always lost in a train of thought whenever going into this.
I know. This is kind of the beauty of this show too. It's because it presented so many scenarios, and I think I just really like the system that The Good Place ended up with, and they've tried to experiment so many different ways, and the final way is essentially giving you the opportunity to do. Maybe you effed up the first time, maybe you didn't do as well the second time, but so it doesn't matter. You can there is a way for you to improve and just be the best version of yourself. I think this is something that we could all kind of take away from this show. It's just to constantly try to improve and be the best version of yourself.
It's interesting because you keep saying how if you effed up the first time you can try again, effed up the first time, try it again, right? That's an infinite loop. But what if there's an end to things, or you can't do that?
What if, because in The Good Place it's a simulation, right? So when you F it up, you don't really have to face the consequence because no one gets hurt. What if in the real world you F it up once and then a lot of people die? Then do you get to have a do-over? Or do you still have to live with the you still have to pay for everything?
Yeah, it's true. And then when you die, let's say there's absolute end, and when you die, you carry that bad name. You know what I mean? You don't really have a legacy anymore. You always carry that name. Let's say you once, I don't know, suck your toe in a train. It's a very specific. I'm just saying. And then for the rest of your life, that's what you be remembered for. And then when you die, and that's it. You don't have a do-over, and that's it. That's the end.
I think that is. Again, whether if my brain really hurts right now. But let's say if that is because that is when you zero in on this life, right? Because if you pull out the lens a little and look at the bigger picture,
people
does it
in
matter?
Alaska doesn't know that you suck your toe in the train, so it doesn't.
So you should move to Alaska.
No. But the thing is, this is the problem with social media, though. Everything lives on. It's there forever. No, but I think the essential thing. I think that is also why Buddhism helped me a lot personally. It's because there is no need to focus on one incident, because if you pull back and look at it at a bigger picture. It's kind of the wave quote thing that Chidi quoted at the end and in the finale.
What was the wave quote?
Oh. Let's go. Picture a wave in the ocean. You can see it, measure it, its height, the way the sun refracts when it passes through, and it's there. And you can see it. You know what it is. It's a wave. And then it crashes on the shore, and it's gone.
Yeah. I think that is also just the bigger... Stop distracting me, Liz.
I'm talking to you, honey.
No, but let's say I feel like it's the Eastern philosophy focuses more on the bigger picture. I think that is also what The Good Place tried to say, right? Chidi has spent his life on Western philosophies that zero in on every single decision. But then Eastern philosophy kind of zooms out and look at it at a bigger picture. I don't know what it means. I'm not smart enough and I don't have the wisdom to get there yet. But I think that idea really resonates with me and that really comforts me in a way.
But that's also very dangerous in a way. It's like if I was playing a bad guy, that's very dangerous. It's just because if that's contribute to the YOLO mentality.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you know what? If every decision, I don't have to focus on every single decision.
Or
I just do whatever.
Actually, The Politician and other TV shows, basically that they're like saying basically that person has very like big ambition to be the president, and then they're saying that he's always thinking whether he's a good person or not, and then the other guy was like, does it matter if you're a good person or not? Are you trying to do the good thing? Like, are you trying to do the good thing? Then it's okay. So basically it's saying like, if I do bad things on the way of being president, but as long as I like when I get to become the president, I get to do a lot more good things, then is that okay? Does it cancel out all the bad things that you do along the way? So
Is it more on the intention then? Like the intention matters more than the actual consequence?
Is it though?
Is it a
Do you think
completely
so?
different
Do you think
conversation
so?
now?
But I don't know. Just as we're having this conversation more and more, I was just thinking, the fact that we do what we do. Let's say YOLO, whatever. Let's say mentality of YOLOing. That's why I'm just gonna do it, or like I don't care about consequences. But you keep doing things, and you want to live life. It's just because you know there's always an end to it. That makes you encourage you to do whatever. Let's say you think that if you think that. Well, I don't know, on a good day, I'll be like, yeah, you know what? Life's gonna end one day, so I gotta live my life to the fullest. That's why I wanna, work hard. I wanna do things for people, right? But when on a bad day, let's say I was just thinking like, oh, I'm so young, I have my life forever. I'm just gonna be lazy today, like whatever. Like that's when I just kind of give up. Like I don't care. But when I know there's an end, you gotta cherish it more. Let's say if I know, like I'm gonna leave one day, right? Let's say a vacation, then you want to try to do it as much as possible. I don't know. I just felt like we do what we do is because there's always an end to it. When you know there's an end, that's encourage you to, do whatever.
Yeah.
Do
That
more.
actually loops back into the theme that The Good Place try to churn out at the beginning. I think that could be a good way to wrap it up.
Because the good place never ends, so it doesn't have any meaning to it.
Exactly.
It only have meaning when you know
when
you
can
that you
end.
can end.
So we all know that our life will end, and it's very likely that it's sooner than we imagine it to be. So it's important for us to
I
make the
think
best.
I'm gonna die tomorrow. So.
Exactly. That's why you need to live
Every
today.
day's a bonus.
Audition.
What's that quote again? Live every day like it's your last.
Carpe
I think
diem.
that it's kind of the ultimate takeaway we have
That
from
you have.
YOLO.
That- yeah.
That I have from YOLO essentially is that
I'm gonna live
I'm gonna
forever.
die. I'm gonna die tomorrow, so I
What
want to make sure I
happens?
do everything today.
What happens if you go to the good place and you know that you have an end, but if you go to the bad place and you live there for eternity?
It's true. No one ever addresses the bad place.
That's true. Like
That
the good
is
place could be
true.
that.
That could be a
Because the bad place still exists.
We have a new show.
Oh, the wasp bees.
Sequel,
The bees
canon.
nostrils. I don't want to have bees in my nostrils.
It's actually interesting. I think the bad place is something that we could talk about too in another episode. It's just how they depicted it. I think it's interesting too.
We should make
But
our
anyway, I
own show
think
that's
we
called
should.
The Bad Place.
We're torturing people with this episode. So
Um,
I think
This is the
we should
bad
end.
yeah.
We should end it.
we should
This
end
is
this.
the bad
This
place.
is the bad place.
Thank you for listening to the bad place.
But yeah, let us know if there is another show that's good and you recommend Jansen to watch it because he is on a Netflix high right now. So
Oh, I just watched
let us know in
Avatar.
the
Avatar's
comments.
really good. Yeah.
Like, oh, no, Avatar, the
I just
last
watched-
Last
Airbender.
Airbender.
Yeah, that
I
was
thought it was
good.
the James.
Fire,
Not the movie.
earth, water, and air.
Thank you for listening to the podcast.
Bye bye.
Bye.